Hello there and welcome to the Card Grotto. Today I'm doing some ombre stenciling with new products from the May release from My Favourite Things. So I'm starting off with this tag here. This is the Scallop cross stitch tag Die-namics, and what's really great is that you've got that stitching holes on the inside if you wanted to use it with cross stitch. But it's really good because you can remove that quite easily to just have a normal tag if you wanted to, which is what I wanted for today. But if I want to add in those holes back in, I can just place that in when I die cut the next time. So I'm going to be adding some ink blending onto this tag, and I'm using Picked Raspberry Distress Oxide ink. And I'm going to be doing some ombre ink blending, so I'm going to be doing a darker shade at the bottom and then a lighter shade at the top. And I'm just getting rid of any excess ink onto a scrap piece of cardstock. I find it quite good to do that with any sort of ink blending. Kind of prevents some of the harsh lines that you get. I didn't get a particularly great blend on this, but I'm going to go in with a stencil so it's not going to be too noticeable. So I'm using the Full of Heart stencil from MFT. This isn't a new one, but I thought it would work really well for this design. So I'm just placing that over my tag where I want it to be, and then I can use some post-it tape just to secure that in place. I didn't actually stick the tag down itself, but I could have done if I wanted to. I'm just going to be really careful here and make sure that I don't move it. So I'm going to go back in with that Picked Raspberry ink, and again I'm going to do an ombre look here. So I'm going to have the darker shade at the bottom and then lighter shade at the top. And then I can remove that stencil and I've got a really nice ombre tag there. So now I'm going to work on my image, and this is the new Hello Little One stamp set from MFT. And I'm going to ink it up with some extreme black ink. This is a really great ink because it's waterproof and also suitable for alcohol markers. So I'm using the mini MISTI here so that I can stamp this a couple of times just to make sure that I get a nice dark impression. And I've stamped that onto some smooth white cardstock. And then I'm going to colour it in with some Copic markers. So I want the stalk to be pretty white in colour. So I'm just going to add some grey Copic markers just onto the left hand side of the stalk, just to add a little bit of shading there. So I'm using the C1 first and then the C0. And then I can go in with the C00 to blend that out, and then the blender pen, the 0, just to sort of blend that all completely together. And then I'm going to go back in with the darkest shade, the C1, just to add a little bit more darkness where I want it to be. And then for the legs and the beak, I can go in with YR16, YR12 and Y11. And then for the bag, I'm going to use RV55 and RV52. So just blending that out, really simple Copic colouring as you can see. And then I can just go back with those two shades again just to add a little bit more darkness to that side. And then off camera I did sort of tidy up the image a little bit. I do colour quite a way away from where I can actually see, so I do occasionally go outside of the lines on camera. So I just sort of tidied that up and went in with the colourless blender just to push any ink back in, and then I'm going to use the coordinating Die-namics to cut that out. Then next I'm going to work on my sentiments. So I've got a piece of black cardstock here, and I'm using an anti-static tool just to get rid of any extra static on that cardstock. And I've got the sentiment here that reads Hello Little One from the Hello Little One stamp set again. And I'm inking that up with some Versamark ink and stamping that down onto that black cardstock. And then I'm going to use some white embossing powder just to add that on, and then I can tap off any excess. I like to do this a couple of times to make sure that I get a good coverage. And then I can heat set that until it's completely melted. And then I'm going to use one of the banner dies from the Hearts in a Row vertical Die-namics set. I really like these banners, they're really good for cutting out small sentiments. And then I can just cut the other end with a guillotine to size. So here I've got my tag, and I've added a little bit of black ribbon through the top. And I didn't want to secure it with anything that's visible, so I've used a clear foam pad just to stick that ribbon sort of together to the tag. And then these are thin foam pads that I'm adding onto the back of my tag. As you can see, I'm making sure that I'm adding quite a lot onto that tag. I want to make sure that it doesn't sag or anything like that in case I send this in the mail. but I'm using the thin foam tape because I'm adding a few different layers onto this card, and I quite like to not add too much bulk to my cards. So just going in with the last 2 pads there, and then to attach that other piece of ribbon, sort of the other side of it, I'm going to go back in with another of those clear foam pads just to stick that down together. And then I can remove the backings of all of those foam pads, and then I can attach that to a A2 white card base. And I've used a side folding card here just to make sure that it doesn't sort of interfere with that ribbon hanging off the edge, or hanging off the top I should say. So now I'm going to add some more of these thin foam pads onto the back of my stalk image. Remove the backings again, and then I can place that down onto my tag, and I'm using this sentiment there just to make sure that I get the placement where I want it to be. And then I can just stick that down, and then I'm going to do the same thing with that sentiment piece. Just add some more of that foam tape onto the back, and I'm adding 2 squares high onto the right hand side because that's hanging over the tag. Just want to make sure that that's level, and then I can add that to my card, and I'm using a T-square ruler here just to make sure that I attach that on straight. And then to embellish the card, I'm going to use some sparkling clear sequins and just add them around the sentiment area. So for this one, I've cut this in half to stick behind the sentiment panel. And then I'm going to stick this other one down above it, and I do end up cutting that down just so that it fits behind the sentiment panel. And I'm using some multi-medium matte here just to make sure that they're going to stick down really nicely. Just using a little bit more of that glue, and then I can stick my last sequin down. And that's the card finished for today. I hope you've enjoyed watching. Links to the products will be in the description bar on YouTube and also over on my blog. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.